Bronny James doesn't belong in the NBA. Not yet.
Bronny James may have just proven his harshest critic, Stephen A. Smith, correct, right after his father declared all-out war on the Lakers coaching staff.
Start tonight. Plenty of that.
The younger James reportedly went head-to-head with J.J. Redick in a very public way, and this time sources say LeBron was nowhere around to pull him back from the edge. Here is the full story of how it unfolded. Bronny gets sent down. NBA icons weigh in. The Lakers moved fast. The moment their roster got healthy and the veterans locked back into their roles, Bronny James was the first one packing his bags, headed straight to the South Bay Lakers, the franchise's G League affiliate. And this was not a one-off situation. It happened again and again across both his debut season in 2024-25 and well into his second year in 2025-26. Every single assignment generated headlines that had almost nothing to do with his play and everything to do with the famous last name attached to his jersey. To really understand what triggered the most talked about demotion, the one that dominated sports media in mid to late November 2025, you have to appreciate the position the Lakers were in at that moment. Their backcourt had finally come together. Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and the rest of the rotation were healthy and firing on all cylinders. On a squad with serious playoff ambitions, there was simply no room for a second-year project guard to log meaningful minutes night after night. So Bronny went down again. J.J. Redick did not sugarcoat it. He spoke plainly and without hesitation. Redick had repeatedly stated that the G League assignments were part of a carefully designed development plan from the very start. Not discipline, not fallout from a bad stretch, not front office drama, just development. He described it as the strategy mapped out from day one, coordinated directly with GM Rob Pelinka and LeBron himself, built specifically to give Bronny the one thing a veteran-heavy playoff roster simply cannot offer: consistent minutes, consistent repetitions, and consistent competitive pressure to accelerate his growth. And what was Bronny's reaction to being sent down again? He did not mope. He did not vent to reporters. He came out publicly and said he was approaching it with a completely open mind, not viewing it as a step backward, but as a real opportunity to sharpen his game every single night, every single possession. He was specific about the areas he was targeting. He said,
"I'm trying to focus now on, bettering myself off the ball. Me and JJ has talked about how, like you said, all the ball handlers on the parent team."
And that right there tells you exactly what you need to know. The Lakers had Luka, they had LeBron, they had Reeves. Bronny was never going to be the primary ball handler orchestrating their offense. So the coaching staff made it crystal clear. He had to become a genuine weapon without the ball in his hands.
So I gotta, learn to be effective off the ball and have a .5 mentality and shoot the ball when I have a open shot. So I'm trying to get better at that. But
shoot first mindset. Catch it and fire in half a second, or move it immediately. No hesitation, no overthinking, no pump fakes standing wide open in the corner. That was the mission heading into South Bay. But while Bronny was down there grinding, the noise surrounding him grew deafening. And the people creating it were not random Twitter accounts. These were Hall of Famers. These were all-time greats. These were faces the entire country sees on television every single week. Magic Johnson came out and said it straight. If he were in Bronny's shoes, he would tell his father to simply let him play a full G League season so he could properly develop. Magic framed it as Bronny needing more seasoning, strongly implying he was nowhere near ready to contribute at the NBA level in a meaningful way. Then Charles Barkley arrived with his signature brand of bluntness. Barkley said Bronny needed to go to the G League and actually play basketball and get better, because warming a bench was never going to develop any player. Here is what he said on the Better Angle podcast. But Barkley did not leave it there. He went further and called out something that had been quietly circulating in NBA circles for weeks: the fact that Bronny was only suiting up for South Bay's home games, skipping road trips altogether. Chuck called it exactly what it was. He said this arrangement where Bronny only plays home games is flat out stupid and unfair to everyone involved. He continued by pointing out that the South Bay head coach was returning from road trips and being forced to immediately reinsert a player he had not seen for a week or two, while still feeling obligated to put him on the floor. Barkley was blunt. The Lakers mishandled this entirely. Bad for Bronny, bad for the team, and bad for the other players fighting desperately for professional careers who were now losing minutes to a guaranteed contract player only showing up for home dates. DeMarcus Cousins was even harsher. He said outright that drafting Bronny signaled the Lakers were not genuinely committed to winning, that this whole situation was more about LeBron cementing his legacy than about assembling a championship-caliber roster.
I mean, I take it as a move, as I don't really think the Lakers are serious anymore.
He made clear he had respect for what LeBron was building from a legacy and business perspective. But when it came to the Lakers actually competing for a title, he was not convinced at all. And Stephen A. Smith, he had been on record long before the season tipped off. He said it plainly.
Bronny James doesn't belong in the NBA. Not yet.
He added that he genuinely believed in Bronny's work ethic and felt the kid had a real chance to make something of his career. But right now, in this moment, he was not ready. And that distinction, belief in the future versus honesty about the present, would soon sit at the center of one of the most explosive confrontations the NBA media world had witnessed in years. But that chapter comes later. What the Lakers were managing in the meantime was a young player surrounded by skepticism from all directions, from legends, from analysts, from scouts who had been warning since 2024 that this entire setup was positioning Bronny for failure. One Eastern Conference scout was quoted saying the expectations placed on Bronny had no connection to the reality of his actual game. A Western Conference executive described the whole situation as genuinely surreal, and yet through all of it, Bronny kept showing up to South Bay, kept putting numbers on the board, and kept his mouth shut about every single person who doubted him. He said himself that he sees every word being written about him, and that some people seem to think he is a robot with no emotions, but he channels all of it. Every critique, every dismissal, into extra gym sessions and extra film work every single day. The real question was whether that fuel was actually showing up where it counts, on the court. And what exactly happened between him and JJ Redick during what became one of the most viral sideline moments of the entire NBA season. Bronny versus Redick. The numbers tell the story. The most discussed moment between Bronny James and JJ Redick did not unfold behind closed doors in a film room or in some private hallway conversation. It happened live on national television, on the sideline during a Lakers victory over the Milwaukee Bucks in November 2025, and it exploded across social media within hours. Bronny had been in the starting lineup that night. He was getting genuine minutes and real opportunities. Luka Doncic had set him up beautifully with wide-open three-point looks from the perimeter, the exact shots the coaching staff had spent months drilling him to take without a second thought, and Bronny passed, both times, wide open. He deferred on both possessions. Redick lost his composure on the bench. The clip spread instantly everywhere. YouTube thumbnails labeled it an explosive blow-up. Social media ran with narratives about Bronny being publicly humiliated. But the actual video told a completely different story. Bronny nodded. He did not argue back. He did not sulk or stare down the court with attitude. He accepted it and kept competing. And afterward, when reporters asked about the exchange, Bronny did not throw his coach under the bus. He did not seek sympathy. He used the exact language Redick had been hammering into him all season.
Bettering myself off the ball, me and JJ has talked about how, like you said, all the ball handlers on the parent team and stuff like that. So I got to, learn to be effective off the ball and have a .5 mentality and, shoot the ball when I have it, have a, open shot. So I'm trying to, get better at that. But
that response was widely described as the perfect mindset by everyone covering the team closely. He absorbed the coaching, internalized the message, and got back to work. Redick himself praised Bronny publicly in March 2026, and what he said was not the language of a coach who had written a player off. He said Bronny had improved significantly, that the entire staff had genuine confidence in him, and that Bronny was always locked in and ready to go.
I'm really happy with where he's at and very confident in where he's going to be as a player.
Redick went further and noted that Bronny had arguably been the standout performer in the Lakers' stay-ready games. The internal scrimmages used to keep bench players sharp for 3 or 4 consecutive weeks. He highlighted clear improvements in Bronny's confidence, pulling the trigger on his jumper, his athleticism, his defensive aggression, and what he called a visible energy in his game that had grown directly from his G League success. And those G League numbers backed up every single word Redick said. Across roughly 21 appearances for South Bay this season, Bronny was averaging 15, 6 points, 3, 1 rebounds, and 5 assists per game on 56% shooting from the field and an impressive 6% from three-point range on nearly 5 attempts per game from deep. South Bay was going on remarkable winning runs during his appearances, at times undefeated or nearly so when he was in uniform. The signature performance came in late March 2026 against the Sioux Falls Skyforce. Bronny erupted for a career-best 26 points on 9 of 12 shooting, knocking down 6 of 8 three-pointers, and adding 7 rebounds and 5 assists across 37 minutes as South Bay won in overtime. That was no fluke. February had already featured multiple performances with 17 points on efficient shooting, 13 points with 5 assists, and a string of consistent defensive plays, steals, contested shots, loose ball hustle, showing his awareness and instincts were sharply improving. Now compare that to where he began. In his rookie year, Bronny was shooting around 31% from the field and under 28% from three in the G League. The jump from those numbers to 56% from the floor and 45% from deep is not a minor statistical adjustment. That is a player who genuinely found something in his game. His NBA minutes reflected it as well. When roster openings emerged, Luka Doncic's suspension and Marcus Smart's injury both created rotation opportunities in recent weeks. Bronny delivered. Flashes of elite athleticism, a thunderous one-handed dunk, defensive plays showing the point of attack disruption Redick had talked about since the preseason. Back in October 2024, when Redick was first questioned about Bronny ahead of preseason, here is what he said.
The kid, he can do some things defensively at his size that are really unique and can, I think, turn into a really disruptive defender.
He believed in Bronny's defensive ceiling from the very first day, and Redick doubled down on the character angle as well. In that same early preseason press conference, he made it clear that coaching Bronny was not a burden he was reluctant to carry. It was something he was genuinely invested in and committed to seeing through.
He's got a great soul and just a great energy about him that I like being around him, and I'm rooting for him.
And Rob Pelinka had made the organization's position unmistakably clear from the moment the draft pick was announced. When critics argued the Lakers simply handed Bronny a roster spot he had not earned, Pelinka pushed back firmly, saying Bronny earned his place through relentless hard work and describing him as the textbook example of the franchise's entire player development philosophy, pointing to his feel for the game, athleticism, point-of-attack defense, shooting ability, and passing instincts. Colin Cowherd was not buying any of it. He went on air and stated flatly that Bronny was not an NBA-caliber player, pointing to early shooting disasters, going 1 for 6 from the field and 0 for 7 from 3 in early appearances, and getting carved up defensively by Tyrese Maxey in one high-profile national broadcast. But those early numbers, as ugly as they were, now look like the first data points on a steep upward curve, not the ceiling of his ability. His 2025-26 NBA shooting percentages, 39, 1% from the field and 37, 5% from 3, represent a meaningful leap from his rookie year lows. And the G League efficiency figures are not just solid for a second-year developmental player. They are genuinely impressive by any standard. The story of Bronny's relationship with Redick is not a story of conflict and tension. It is the story of a demanding coach holding a young player to an uncomfortably high bar and that young player rising, slowly but unmistakably, to meet it. What Redick did on that Bucks sideline was not humiliation. It was coaching in its purest form. And Bronny's response in that moment told you everything about who he is as a competitor and as a person. Which brings us to the man who put him in this position in the first place. The father who has stood at the center of every conversation about Bronny James since before a single tip-off. LeBron. Nepotism charges and a father's war, let us just call it what everyone already knows it is. Bronny James was selected 55th overall by the Los Angeles Lakers at the 2024 NBA Draft. And from the second that pick was announced, the debate over whether he earned his spot or inherited it has never quieted down. His college numbers at USC, 4.8 points per game in the wake of a 2023 cardiac arrest, were not the kind of production that typically has scouts scrambling to move up the board. Yet there he was, drafted by his father's team, locked into a 4-year deal worth $9 million, suiting up alongside LeBron James on one of the most watched rosters in professional basketball. Former NBA players were openly critical. Charlie Villanueva went on record saying that just one team, only one, showing interest in a kid averaging 4 points on 36% shooting said everything that needed to be said. He said LeBron did not ask the Lakers to draft Bronny. He told them. He said the cameras were already positioned at the dinner table on draft night, which meant everyone in that room already knew the outcome long before it was made official.